Hey there, my name is Hitesh Devasi, and you're listening to the Creator to Creator podcast, where I talk to other creatives about their journey and experiences. This week, I sit down with Behruz, who is a DJ, producer, an athlete, and overall just a creative force. He brings his A game into everything he does. We talk about how training and exercising can help creatives increase their productivity and how to use competition among friends to grow together. All right, live. Thank you so much for doing this, bro.
Thank you for having me, my guy. It's a pleasure to be here.
My pleasure is all mine. Put this on silent. Nobody disturbs us for this period. So, how's everything?
Yeah, man. I'm chilling. I'm just getting back on my feet after this
Corona.
absolute nightmare of a period.
Madness.
Yes.
All of this madness that we've been going through.
Been crazy.
How was this?
Man, honestly, it was kind of a nice break. It was, at first it was daunting. It was like, all right, when am I getting back to work? When am I getting paid again? But after a while, after I accepted it, it kind of became like, I now have a period in my life where I have more free time than I've ever had before. I have no choice but to have free time. The only thing I can do is work on myself at this time. So it's like I spent all of my time producing, which is something that I wasn't doing enough. I used to produce when I lived in Chicago, and when I had my whole setup there. Like in my house, I had my studio set up and everything. And when I moved back to Dubai, I lacked on it a lot. Like I didn't set everything up. It wasn't like I got into DJing too much, late nights and stuff. I kind of always made an excuse to not find the time to do what I was truly passionate about. Like music overall is my passion, but creating music is, I think for every musician at some point inside, you want to create it. You want to express, what
Something
you have
that's
inside.
coming from you.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, DJing is cool. It's technically it's cool, like skill wise. It's cool in an entertainment purpose. But at the end of the day, you're a curator. You're not a creator. And that's great. You curating in itself is an art form where you express yourself by curating and playing other people's music. But I think the true art form in music is creating it.
You got to do that a lot more.
I got to do it crazy. And I've always done it. I've always done a week or so of producing heavy, and then something distracts me in my life. I go on holiday or something like that. And then when I get back to it, I'm not on that schedule anymore. But here I had no choice. It was 3 months. It was like every single day was going to be the same thing. So
I think that's a positive side for a lot of people out of this scenario, that it's kind of forced everybody to sit down and reanalyze a lot of things. And you can go one of two directions. You can either sit and mope about it, or the other direction is you try to make something out of it.
Yeah, man. And it's crazy how there's so many people now that you would think that, okay, maybe they just sit and mope, but you actually find that there's so many more people that got motivated by it to do something else, which is so cool, Kind of brings my faith back in humanity. It's like everyone was trying to learn a new skill or hone on their skills that they already had and, refine them. It was cool.
Yeah, like you said, the faith in humanity in a way feels nice, because I think in the long run, a lot of this is going to be very good for a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely.
In the immediate short-term future that we are seeing, obviously there's some ramifications and there's some adjustment period for many people. But in the long run, I think this is going to be a very, very nice thing for everybody I've spoken to, especially in our community here and my friends in other places abroad. Everybody says the same thing. I finally started that hobby that I wanted to do, or I finally got better at whatever it was, even if it wasn't something that it translates directly into your career or something, even your personal life. Some people started making their cooking skills better, or picking up a new hobby. Like I said, I think that is going to be so much better for a lot of people. And we were having this conversation a little bit earlier off air, the mental health aspect of people, talking and making this. That I think ties into this a lot more, because the conversation we were having was about the information you consume is how your mentality is affected.
Yeah, it's your mental diet.
Yeah, but the other aspect is also like what you practice on a daily basis.
Mhm.
Because we're so on a day-to-day basis, we're used to going through shit just like with momentum in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. Like, okay, you're doing this, then you're doing this, you're doing that.
Mhm.
You're just going on a momentum
Yeah.
almost.
You're not
Nothing-
really stopping, thinking, and then doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things I like a lot about you is like you actively do, like especially your gym and your physical fitness is
Mhm.
something you take very personal, and you want to like be as good at that as
Absolutely,
possible.
absolutely.
What's the main reason for you?
Man, it started as when I was younger. I was just super into sport all the time at school and stuff like that. You know,
What sports?
Basketball mainly. But there were phases. Basketball was the one that lasted, but before that, it was football. It was cricket. It was, you know, and basically anything you could do, I did. I was on the rugby team. I was on the cricket team. I was on the basketball team. Like I was doing it. I loved sport. Obviously, as you grow up, the opportunity to play competitive sport lessons outside of school and outside of educational institutes. But that's where the gym came in for me. For me, it is a little bit about how I look. I love the way I look. I love, I love when anyone who says it's not to do with their ego at all is lying, right? In my head. Yes, it feels great when someone says like, oh, like, wow, you look so fit. And the reason is it's like, okay, now like all this hard work I've put into the gym in the last however many years, people are recognizing it, which is cool. It's like, it's a tangible evidence for your hard work. But the main reason is it's therapy for me. Honestly, it's therapy. It's both mental therapy and it's also physical therapy on a biological level. There's so many advantages to your mental health that physical activity.
Yeah, I think
causes,
there's an element of like doing something really hard, like something that's hard to do physically. When you do something like that, it translates into like everything else in your life as well, saying that, okay, that was hard and everything else is not that hard, like, okay, it's whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And people like, people think that going to the gym is fun for me, but it's not fun.
I hate being in the gym.
It's not fun at all, especially after 8-9 years of doing it. It's not fun. It's a lot of the time it's boring. It's repetitive. It's stagnant where you don't progress at all because
but the benefits outweigh.
Absolutely. And, it's on each person to switch it up and change what they're doing in the gym, change what they're doing physically. And that's why, like last night at 11 p.m., I went to play basketball at the Trade Center. I played till about 1 a.m. It's the first time I got to do that since COVID, which was amazing. But yeah, like it's all about, it's not just about the gym for me. It's just physical activity itself just makes me feel so much better, and it's in a lot of ways, it's like the mental state that people have come through in Corona. It's science. Pressure creates change, right? Pressure in any sense creates change. Mental pressure creates mental change. If you tackle it right, if you really, are the type of person who will feel pressure and not just cave into it, but say, okay, I'm going to change so I can deal with this pressure. And that's kind of what the gym is for me. It's everything that pressures me in my life. I go to the gym or I do some physical activity, and in that hour and a half, I don't touch my phone. I don't do nothing else. It's just, I'm going to focus on this. And when I come out of it, I feel lighter. I feel better. It's something that I think like I would recommend to every single person.
Yeah, especially like you said, the focus element of it, like you're so focused when you're doing something like in a gym, things like that. It translates almost as cross training into everything else you do as well. You get that focus, how to be focused.
Absolutely, it's discipline.
Yeah.
It's absolute discipline. Like going to the gym every single day or 5 times a week for the last decade of my life is not easy. Yeah. It takes discipline to get to that, and that translates into so much else in my life where now I've learned discipline. So I know what it takes to really see change. If you really want to make something happen, anyone that works out will tell you, it's not going to be 1 month. It's not going to be 2 months.
It's over time.
Yes,
it's a long
absolutely.
period.
It's dedicated discipline over time. And that's what brings change.
You start identifying these patterns, especially from working out and things like this, like you mentioned, like it's not going to be immediate. It's the same way even in your like creative career as a DJ, as a music producer and things like that. Like it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it does not happen overnight.
So like small changes, small decisions end up being a big result over time, over 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, depending on where you are at the journey for yourself. I think that those patterns you start seeing, and for me, I'm not as dedicated on a regular basis as you, but like the main reason I started being way more active physically in the gym and other things was I have a lot of, when I'm on the sets, when I'm on the photography gig or something like that, or when I'm traveling, when I'm carrying all that gear, I started realizing if I'm more fit, I'm more able to push myself on that scenario. I have to carry like whatever the amount of gear it is, extra bags, things like that. So if I'm in a mountain hiking, if I am fit here, it allows me to be better a photographer, go to those extra places a longer distance or for a longer period, push myself better to go to that perfect location to get that much of a better shot than somebody who would not be able to go to a place.
Absolutely. And the ways that, you know, physical fitness relates to real life situations is limitless, you know, and it's not also all about just getting better and better and better every day. It's also about setbacks. For example, last year, I severely injured my sciatic nerve, and I trapped it, and, you know, I couldn't really work out my legs, which are my favorite thing to work out, for like 4 or 5 months. And it was a massive setback.
How was that from?
It's just tightness, not being flexible enough. And one day I was just at the bottom of a squat, and I felt it pinch and my leg went numb, you know? And it was like, okay, now I have to deal with this. Now I can't train legs for 4 months. And when I come back, like, I know I'm going to be weak as hell. So, you know, that's COVID in life, isn't it? It's like now I can't do shit for 4 months. And when I come back, I'm not going to have anything ready for me. So I got to start all over again. But that's part of life. And it's like, it inspires you to do other things. The reason I started doing yoga over COVID is because I realized, okay, I have all this muscle on me, but I am not flexible. And like, there's no point of having all this muscle if I'm just going to be tight and sore from everything, you know?
I want to get back to that yoga thing again, but like you mentioned, the setback aspect. I think a lot of times training, no matter which form it is, it's the philosophy of training that allows you to look into your real life, the other part of your life, not only just because even this is real life, but like other part of your life, and make connections to see, okay, how to combat this, like you said, challenge or a setback. And that a lot of times is way more helpful than the other aspects of like, okay, like you said, the looking good. That's a good side effect.
That's all it is. You're right. That's all it is. All looking good is a great side effect, but it's a side effect. It's not my primary reason. And I think anyone who's really committed to it for as long as I have, unless they're a bodybuilder for their career, it's not their primary goal. Their primary goal is not like, oh, I've been going to the gym for 10 years because I want to look good. No, like at some point you realize like there's a lot more to it.
Sure. And have you ever tried anything else apart from the gym? Because the reason I ask is like, I had the same thing. I would get so bored in the gym, like the daily repetitions, the same exercises, and the monotony almost of it was so extremely boring. But the time I was living in Singapore, for me, I looked at it as like, okay, what can I do about it? So I ended up joining a MMA gym there, and that created a new excitement of just the new movements and just. I took it purely as a training perspective. Obviously, I have no interest in fighting anybody. I have no interest in that. As much as possible, I want to avoid it in my life. Definitely.
That's a good decision.
So I took it purely as a training perspective. And I've been following MMA for a long time in my own life. Like I'm a huge fan of the UFC and things like that. That's probably at the moment like the only sport I watch over the last 4 or 5 years. Before, as a child and growing up, I would watch cricket and football a little bit here and there. But as soon as I started watching MMA, like everything else didn't feel as exciting anymore. There's that primal aspect of the fighting. And I saw once I started listening to some of the fighters talk about MMA training and how psychologically it affects them and how they translate that into their the other aspects of their life, that intrigued me to try to explore it a little more. Especially the first fight I ever saw was, I don't know if you know George St. Pierre, is a Canadian.
Of course. Legend.
He's the best martial artist in this generation, arguably, or one of the best, of course, at least. So he was my first, the first exposure I had to MMA was his fight against Nick Diaz.
A decade ago.
It's over a decade ago, I think. So that was like looking at this guy who was so dedicated, so disciplined, and so successful at his craft, allowed me to see that in the terms of like, okay, let's try to get into this a little more to understand what it is. And that training aspect which I had in Singapore allowed me to definitely get that element of what it means psychologically, philosophically, to understand training. Because before that I was in the gym a little bit here and there. I understood the benefits of it, but I think that took it to a whole different level for me to just understand how it affects, like you said, also like the yoga element, because that's completely different to gym training, weights training. But that also allows you to understand your own body differently, your mentality differently. I started a little bit of yoga over the corona as well, purely because I was not flexible enough. I was having back issues.
And it fixes that, huh?
Sitting on I'm seeing benefits from it.
For sure.
I think it's a long-term process. It's a long process. Because for me, it was also like, okay, you're on the table for so long. You're carrying bags when you're on the gig. I'm always in the weird position when I'm doing photography and things like that. So that was messing up my back.
For sure.
And I think a lot of times people just accept that, saying that this is just part of being a photographer.
Doing something to do with it.
Do something about it. Like I didn't want to, because everybody I've met who've been doing, for example, photography for 10 years, 15 years or something like that, they all have bad backs.
Complaining about back.
Everybody has bad backs.
So
I was like, man, like I need to do something about it. So I don't want to end up in my older ages.
Like you're young. I can't have back problems now. Like this is crazy, right?
This is crazy. So I was like, okay, and like over time that I've learned from other, especially watching Joe Rogan's podcast a lot. Like I watch his podcast crazy. So I understood like yoga, how benefits of yoga and things like that. So that for me became the catalyst of like, okay, let me try this. Let me see what it is. And I have a friend as well who has been doing it for a while, and he told me like, you have to do it, especially if you're having these issues with your back and everything. Just do it. You will start seeing the benefits, and then take your decision from there.
Man, I cannot tell you. I have tried every single type of physical activity. I used to do crazy MMA, and you know what I love about it is you think that you're so good at something, right? Like I've been in the gym for years. I'm like, yo, like anything physical, I can handle it. And then I start doing yoga, and I'm just humbled completely because it's like, yo, I can't touch my toes. Like I can't do shit. You know what I mean? It was the same with MMA. Like I used to play a lot of basketball and still go to the gym when I started doing MMA. It was a long time ago. I did it for about 3 or 4 years.
What did you start doing?
There's this trainer in Dubai called Tam Khan.
Okay.
He had like one of the first MMA gyms. He now owns a gym called TK MMA Fit.
I've heard about that one.
Right. So when I was, I think 13 or 14, he used to have this gym in like down on Sheikh Zayed Road, and I used to go to this gym, and it was just, it was wrestling, it was taekwondo, it was a bunch of shit. And I was, at the time, I considered myself very physically fit. But again, as soon as it translates into another form of it, it's just crazy. It's like, yo, I'm useless. I can't do anything, which humbles you and makes you think, okay, now I have something new to work on.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And
I think especially, like you said, the humbling aspect of it is good for people in a lot of ways, because it checks your ego a lot of times.
For sure.
Because you can think of yourself as like, okay, I'm really good.
Yeah.
But that humbling check from like martial arts or yoga or whatever element it is from different parts of your life, you get, it's really good for your personality, I think, especially as creative people, because it allows you to always want to push and get better.
Yeah.
And that's the way I see it. And for other people, like if you're not ready to let your ego in the door when you're entering a gym or MMA or things like that, you will get injured.
Absolutely.
And I think in a lot of ways that translates also to being a creative, because if you don't check your ego, thinking that everything you make is good,
you're doing yourself a disservice in the end. Yeah. And that's how yoga started for me. One of my friends, God bless her, she was the one. She's super into yoga, and she used to say like, okay, if you're not too flexible, why don't we start doing some strength yoga together so that you're already a little bit more comfortable? And I'm like, yeah, strength yoga sounds easy. Like I got a good core, I can hold poses or whatever. You might have a good core, but when you're upside down with your feet in the air, it's not easy.
Holding all these positions.
And there's a 50 kilo weighing girl who's doing every single thing like with ease. And I'm over there dripping sweat. And it's like, wow. Like
uncomfortable, barely breathing.
Yeah, it's like, wow, this is crazy. And like, it humbles you. And that's very important in everything, in every aspect.
How for you, you've seen the biggest use, like some of these things we've already mentioned a little bit, but as a creative person, how else have you seen the benefits from training or from these other aspects of more physical exercises?
Well, I mean, like you said, on job is a big thing, like I'm often standing for hours. When I'm DJing, I stand for 4 or 5 hours and I get the same thing. My lower back starts hurting a lot, and yoga has helped that a lot. The gym probably didn't help that. The gym probably, it made that worse because I'm always putting pressure on my lower back. But that's why the balance is so important, because there are certain parts of your body that are asking for something and certain parts that are asking for something else. So you need to balance it, like I said, I got so muscular over the last 10 years and my body got to a point where it was like too tight,
Yeah, because gym is a lot more like singular movements. You're doing bench presses.
Yeah, it's very static. Obviously, there's different ways of training in the gym. And again, I've explored all of those, from doing CrossFit to doing different types of splits to doing chest one day and back one day and legs one day to doing full bodies on some days. I've done all sorts of stuff. And it's very important to switch it up for me.
It also shocks your body in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And that's what creates the change, After so many years of working out, if I worked out in the same way every single day, I would see very, very minimal progress or change.
One little bit of a tangent here, but like something I am very passionate about, that I try to keep as up to date as possible on, is like the medical science that comes from all of this. Like I strongly believe that our generation is going to live up to at least 150. Yeah,
150.
I strongly believe that.
I don't know about all that, bro.
Because there's so many medical science that's been improved now that unless there's like an accident or something like that, of course that's not gonna help. But there's like, if you know about a little bit like stem cell technology and things like that, like at the moment these are only accessible for like extreme athletes and things like that. That's so expensive. But like you mentioned, the sciatic nerve you had, that took you 6 months, you said?
To recover from.
Yeah, but I think the technology of that is improving so fast.
Absolutely. And yeah, I guess the people in the top positions are the ones that everyone will now obviously start experimenting on, and start athletes like, you see people in the NBA, like they tear their meniscus and within a week they're back playing basketball. And it's like, what? It's crazy.
I read this crazy study, which was, I think, one of these Olympic athletes tore his ACL. When normal surgery and recovery period would be anywhere between few months to a year, or maybe even longer.
8 months to like a year, yeah.
This guy competed in Olympics in 4 months.
Yeah, so
4 months.
So recovery is crazy. I mean, like you see, like athletes in basketball, there's things like that the normal audience doesn't really know unless you're really, really into it. It's like when athletes come off the game onto the bench, like at halftime or whatever, oftentimes they'll like drain fluid out of their knees using the syringe and stuff. And things to us that sound crazy, but it's very normal for them to, keep their bodies in shape. And on your point about people living till 150.
I'll tell you what, let me give a little bit of context on that.
Okay.
Less than 150 years ago, average human life expectancy was, if you are really lucky, would be maybe 35 to 50. Now, it's pretty normal for everybody to live up to like 80, 90 years. And that's over that period. Now, the it's more encouraged. The advances are way faster and things like that. Especially with like the stem cell in particular, like for example, they now can completely regenerate
limbs and stuff like that. Yeah,
I don't think it's up to the stage now where they can regenerate limbs, but they can definitely regenerate tissues,
right?
But certain organs maybe. I read this one particular study which showed some lady who had a bladder cancer, and they grew her a new bladder completely.
Wow.
So a lot of these things are happening, and these are only going to improve faster and faster.
No, you have a very valid point. And I think another thing is that people are now so much more aware about health and, you know, our
especially over Corona, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Everyone works out now, right? But yeah, our generation is probably the generation that is most informed. It definitely is most informed about health and the importance of what you consume and how you consume it, the benefits and the cons of so many different things. But flip side is pretty much everything gives us cancer now, right? Like we're using phones and telephones and people smoking vapes and this and that. It's like, so it's all about, all about a balance. Depends.
Like you said, like the flip side, if you're using all of these things, but I think there's also a big percentage of people now trying to actively have a more the longevity period that they're trying to increase as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Like you're not training to be a bodybuilder. You're not training to be in that peak performance stage. You're doing it more for longevity period for yourself. And as we understand this more and more, the diet aspect and things like this, because for a while, like sugar was normal. Everybody thought you have to consume sugar and things like that. So now people know better and things like that. So I think more and more that we understand, the people who actively try to do things to extend their life expectancy longer and longer, I think there is definitely element. I don't know for sure. Maybe 150 is a little bit of a generous guess. It's definitely a guess.
Maybe eventually. I don't know about you and me.
I think so.
Do you think you and I are gonna live to 150? Do you want to?
Unless I definitely want to. That's definitely for sure. I would love to live longer than 150 also.
Fair enough, man.
But I think that's mostly because like I have such curiosity of like trying new things.
You don't think you'll ever get bored with life? You think that there's always going to be something new you want to do?
There's so many places to explore. There's so much world to see.
When you're 150, you kind of live 2 lives or 3 lives, you know? There's different phases. Like you might be a photographer and a videographer and a content creator now, but in 30 years, you might be something else.
And I think that's the element of that for me, which is more very exciting. Like, okay, what's the human, because now it's normal in a lot of ways for people to go through one thing and like just live that. But if you start living for longer and longer, how many people are going to start exploring these different things? Like I love learning new languages. I love going to new places and things like that. And in a lot of ways, like I think the only thing that restricts humanity is like, okay, you have this lifespan. What are you going to do? This is where you stop.
Yeah.
So I personally don't think I would get bored, but I would like to understand, like, if people had more life age to live, what would it change into?
Yeah,
what would it change into? There's no saying what's going to happen.
True. And I think, like, also this is one of the things that I've been exploring crazily, like recently, that I haven't really put into practice yet at all, and I don't do it. So when I'm saying this?
What's this?
Being vegan.
Okay.
People need to go vegan, man.
Really?
Like, I'm saying this as someone who has not done one day of veganism in his life. I love meat. I eat meat like crazy, but man, everything I watch, it's undeniable. Like, it's undeniable that being vegan is just better for you.
But why do you say that?
Because there are so many things.
Is it the unethical practices?
No. I care about all that. Sure, I care about the animals and all that. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in a purely selfish manner, for your own health, go vegan.
But there's a lot of things. For example, being vegan, there's a lot of nutrients, vitamins that you don't get it's very hard to get from plants.
You can get everything.
You can, but you have to actively.
Absolutely, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
That's what I'm trying to say, is because like a lot of people think, okay, let's go vegan means that like just consume plant products. But you have to be actively sure, because everybody's health is different, everybody's body is different, and you know this from especially working out and training and being a little conscious about what you eat. Like not everything works the same way. So people who want to practice it, kudos to them. Like you have to just be sure that you're conscious about the vitamins and other things that you want to consume, because that's a huge element of how your psychology works. Because if you have certain things that you don't consume properly, I've been pretty active about trying to maintain like my supplements to a certain extent, like taking omegas and just general things, not super crazy. But I've seen just that aspect of like how it affects my mood.
Yes, absolutely. You know, like one of the best things you can invest in is a good multivitamin. You know, a good multivitamin can cure so many of just little things. They get energy, things like that. And you know, like okay, I'm saying go vegan, but there's baby steps you can take. For example, even if you don't want to go vegan, yeah, sure, I love meat too, but just try to watch what you put into your body. You know, like for example, there's this crazy thing I read, and like as far as I know, it's true. Is that hot dogs, like frankfurters that you can buy and put in your freezer and then heat up and put in a hot dog, has the same amount of carcinogens as plutonium, which just blew my mind. And I looked it up and I was like, wow, this is actually true. And obviously it doesn't affect your body like plutonium would, but like just thinking about that, it's like,
you mean like mostly preserved food and
absolutely, that kind of stuff is just not good for you.
Try to eat as healthy in terms of fresh foods.
And if you're gonna natural is the thing. If you're gonna eat meat, eat natural meat. You know, I'm not saying go into the wild and kill an animal and take the meat off its bones, but as close to that as you can.
I think one good element is like from because I'm quite passionate about this topic as well. I'm not to an extent where like I want to go vegan.
I'm not either. I'm just saying I probably should.
But the element that I get more excited about are things that I see more possible things for me, is something that I would definitely want to have more stuff directly from a farmer. For example, like some places, I don't know how much of it exists in Dubai, but like there's places where they have like farmers market and things like that. I think those are very good options
for sure,
rather than just getting directly from a supermarket where you have no idea how that's coming and things like that. Those are very good options. If you have an ability to get something like that, you should for sure try to explore it. And even that helps them support the local farmers and things like that.
Yeah, man. And more than that, it's not even just about your health. Like the sustainability and the positives for the environment that has is crazy. For example, there's this documentary on Netflix that just came out, Zac Efron's Down to Earth.
I've seen
that documentary is amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. It is so inspirational. The things he goes to all these different cities and finds out things like how they generate their power, for example, in Iceland, or how in France the entire city provides fresh spring water to everyone for free, and how plastic usage is so much less. And it's crazy, man. And it's just like, there's so many cities that are so progressive that have certain elements of things down. And if over time we can all kind of combine them and make it a global thing, man.
I think that's the thing. I think those are the good ways of seeing it, because the element that I don't personally like is the hype of social media and things like that says like, okay, go, I want to be vegan and things like that. There's nothing wrong in that, but there's nothing wrong even in eating meat, but don't do it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, fuck no. Like, of course, like, man, people who go vegan just to,
be on a team almost.
That's I don't even know if people do that. I'm sure there are people who do that. Like,
sure.
I probably don't associate with those people, but yeah, I mean, that's not the right reason, right? And I think if you do it for those kinds of reasons, it's not sustainable for yourself either.
And you're never gonna get bored of it, or you're gonna be like, okay, I can't do it anymore, and then you're gonna bounce back even stronger than before. Like, But in general, I think the gist of like is like, okay, try to eat as healthy as possible, regardless
Absolutely.
of which direction you're going in, because that affects your performance as whatever you're doing in life. It doesn't have to be something like we do in extremes in terms of like you're standing for that long, or just carrying weights when you're around for your job and things like that. But in general, it will affect your mood a lot better. You're gonna have like way more energy, because I try to balance it out. I love occasional burger with fries and everything else as well. But like especially in the mornings for me, I've seen the biggest benefits of that. I love a good breakfast. I'm a huge component of, like, for me, breakfast is my favorite meal.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So, me too.
Yeah, like I'll wake up, I'll have a good routine in the morning, and then I'll make a good breakfast, which in a lot of the majority of the cases is like what I consider like very healthy breakfast. So that allows me to just start the day off in a good way with good energy, and that carries throughout the day. Like sometimes towards the evening, if I'm outside with friends and things, or on a gig or something like that, I will be in the restaurant. Sometimes we'll order a dessert, things like that. That's okay for me. That doesn't bother me that much, as long as I've started the day off really well, because that then carries throughout the day. Like it allows me to give that energy, the same level of performance throughout the day.
But let me tell you something. I went through this phase in my life, right, when I was at college, where I was so obsessed with, my body and just looking good and like being as lean as possible, that I started doing what a lot of bodybuilders do, which is counting calories of every meal and stuff, right? Mentally, worst time of my life.
Yeah.
Right? Wasn't worth it at all. Sure, I was shredded and lean like crazy, but mentally, worst time of my life. Now, best time of my life mentally. And people look at me now and they're like, he must eat so clean. He must train 3 times a day for hours. He must be on steroids. All sorts of shit, yo. The amount of people that think I'm on steroids is like, firstly, those people don't know what they're talking about. But man, to be honest, I eat very, very healthily 85% of the time. 85% of the time. And that 15% when I don't eat healthily, I do not feel guilty at all. I don't give a fuck. I will enjoy my life. I enjoy my meals. But if the majority of your life you do something and you dedicate to it and take little breaks from it, you're set.
I think like you mentioned, like for mentality, like your mental health, I think that's way better.
Absolutely. You can't do it 100% of the time, man. No one, like, it's not worth it.
Especially because it's not your primary factor in life, because you're not competing.
Exactly. It's not my career, bro. If I was a bodybuilder, I would have 4 needles up my ass, putting juice in it, and like, eating every single thing exactly counting. But I'm not. So why do that to myself?
Why put that extra pressure and stress on yourself?
Yeah, man. And it just it makes you so anti-productive. It just makes you sluggish and miserable and moody, and it's just not worth it. You're lean and you have an 8-pack, but so what? Who gives a shit at the end of the day? Like, that's all superficial. Like, if you're just going to be a miserable person.
True. If it's not especially coming to make your life better.
No, I don't.
If it's going,
I'll never do it again.
Opposite direction. Then you, and it's good that you actively analyze yourself in that way, because you have to, at the end of the day. Like, if you're feeling for multiple days or weeks in a row like miserable, but you're still continuing to doing it, that's just craziness.
Yeah, I mean, I did it for like probably a year, man, and like, I'm glad I did it, because now I know I will never do that shit again. I will never do that shit, no matter what. I will not do it. I'm not cut out for it. I'm someone who loves food. I'm a foodie.
That's
like,
another thing as well.
Like, I love food. So for me to have done that, it was difficult, man. I used to do like 0 carb days and shit like that. And again, it's also about education. I went through, when I was doing that phase in my life, I thought carbs were the devil. Now I eat like over 100 grams of carbs a day, and I'm still pretty fucking lean. Like, that's, you have to understand your body.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, is keep experimenting, keep trying different things, and see what makes you feel good. What makes you look good, and
makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Especially, I think people get too absorbed in the idea of numbers.
Yeah. Like numbers on the scale?
Yeah, numbers on the scale and things like that. Stupid. Like, for me, as long as I like the way I look in the mirror,
Uh-huh.
it doesn't really make a difference of
Yeah.
like what weight I am at and things like that. Why do you care?
Yeah, and people don't understand the science. People don't understand that muscle is heavy, fat is light. So if you're seeing numbers on the scale and you're thinking I'm fat, that's wrong, you know?
Yeah.
I'm 87 kgs. I'm barely 5'11.
Right.
I'm 5'11, but I'm barely 6 feet.
Yeah.
But I'm 87 kgs. That is heavy. But I'm also like, I'm lean. The reason I'm heavy is because it's muscle mass.
Muscle also carries a lot of water weight.
Exactly.
And so like it feels like you'll be more, like I said, 87 for somebody else might be like, man, that's a lot.
Yeah. So
But
people think like, you know, having a large number on a scale means that you're fat, and it doesn't.
yeah.
It does not.
And then
There's so many concepts. There's so many different things, bone density and water weight, and, you know, so many different things.
That's true. Definitely. Going back to a little bit of, like you said, growing up, you were into a lot of sports.
Mhm.
Where did that convert into music for you? How did that transition happen?
Listen, if I wasn't a musician,
Yeah.
I would be a basketball player. It was my entire life. It was the two things paralleled from as long as I can remember. You know, from being 6 years old and getting my first computer and sitting there connecting to dial-up and going on LimeWire or
Most people
Kazaa.
don't even know what dial-up is.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I was so young at the time and just downloading illegal music all the time and stuff like that. I was into music from day one. You know, I started playing the guitar when I was 9. Played the piano, all sorts of things. So studied music through high school, studied music at college, as well as sound engineering. It was always a passion. So it was just as much of a passion as sport. And it got to the point where I was like, all right, like I'm 5'11". NBA is not really realistic for me right now. Like, you know.
When was this? During college or before? High school?
There was the time where I had the choice to make about moving to the States for high school.
From?
For my last 2 years from Dubai.
Okay.
Or staying here. And I think that would have made the biggest change, is because the way sports work in the US is if you want it to be serious, it starts from high school, right?
Yeah.
It's super,
especially the ones they're more prominent, wrestling, the NBA.
Yeah, exactly. You know, college scouts start looking at kids from high school when they're like 15, younger.
Have you read this book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
I haven't, but I've been told to read it. I keep getting Instagram sponsored ads about it too. I keep getting Instagram sponsored ads. I'm like, what?
I think, especially when you have conversations like this, I'm sure you've noticed, like every time somebody brings up things like this and then you start getting sponsored.
Oh yeah, big data. Big data is crazy, yo. They're watching us, I'm telling you. They're watching everything we're doing.
So I think, but if you read it, especially like I consumed it in the audio format, like I consume most of my books in audio format. There's very few that I actually go through sitting down and reading them. You start seeing how these extreme sports athletes, especially athletes, how they almost have that curated life from the beginning to being where they are at.
It's very rare, and it's like if you're one of those people that when you turned 18, you picked up a sport and you went professional. Like there's a few people who have done that, and that's like, man, God-given talent. Like, I don't know. That's like the universe's miracle, because this shit is hard, man. We don't give professional athletes enough credit for what they do. I know we give them enough money, but we don't give them enough credit.
Some.
Some. Not female ones. We don't give female ones enough money.
Only the big stars usually make a lot of money.
Yeah,
of
man.
Course, I think sports has that thing in our culture, like they're always seen almost like heroes in a lot of ways. Like for me,
absolutely idols
as well. Like it becomes idols in a lot of ways as well, right? Because it's pure. The person did everything from his will. He wasn't put in a place as a CEO or something like that. He started from school, high school, or wherever it was, and then built it over time.
And it's individual talent, like, you know, it's crazy.
Team or individual,
but individual contribution towards the team.
Especially individual sports is absolutely crazy. Like state championships and the national championships, then with whatever, like the levels that you go through.
Yeah, man, and it's like most of the time it starts when they're kids. You know, imagine how much pressure they have.
Yeah.
But this is something I want to come back to: is women do not get enough credit. Like, shout out women, man. Women are amazing.
Definitely.
I love women,
Which
but
sports for you, the ones which you didn't work, but has been sort of things that you watch a lot? Or, like
growing up,
yeah, not even growing up, even now, anything.
Serena Williams, Venus Williams. Like growing up, I watched every tennis game. You know, I watched every one of their tennis games because it was just like, this is crazy. And like, I hate how there's men out there that are like, like women's sports standards are like just not the same. Like, I'm a decent tennis player. I could probably beat Serena Williams.
No,
bro, get your ass out here. You get your ass handed to you, bro.
You get
like,
whooped by
so
Serena
many things,
Williams.
man. The American girl who's doing gymnastics right now, Simone, I can't remember her name, but she's like 16 and it's insane. It's unreal. And it's
Gymnastics is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The way they're able to move their bodies are like unbelievable.
Man, like, and I think, you know, a lot of it translates to music as well. Women sometimes just don't get enough credit for how they
and we see that in
are on the
society.
same level and surpass men in a lot of things, man. And like, they don't get enough credit. They don't get enough money for it. They don't, you know, or like things like female musicians, right? More often than not, they're sexualized, which is so like, you know, it's so unnecessary.
We see that a lot in our community here as well. We have a lot of friends, common friends who are in the female musicians or artists in different ways. And yeah, I've noticed as well, like, I mean, it's pretty obvious, like there's way lesser females, but like the ones who are there, a lot of times you see they're not appreciated in that way. And why or what makes the difference, or what do you think should be changed in a lot of ways for that?
Well, see, in my
especially
opinion,
in our region here.
Yeah, in our region here is one of the main things is that leadership, man. Like a lot of these clubs and gigs and all of it, it's run by men, right? And if they'll get a female DJ, but a lot of the times it's like, oh, I want a female DJ because I want a female DJ. And sure, the girl is talented as hell, right? But are you hiring her for her talent? Because that's important. The reason you're hiring her, because then you have the platform to allow her to showcase that talent. If you're just going to hire her because you think she looks good and don't care about her talent at all, then you're not going to provide her with the tools to actually showcase that talent, which is doing them a disservice. And like, I hate people who are like, oh, she just got that gig because she's a girl. No, she got that gig because she's better than you.
She's good.
Yeah. You know, and like, man, shout out all the female artists here. Like,
and I think
crazy.
that's I think the more positive side of it from what I've been seeing as well. There's a lot of amazing female artists here. Shabani, Tumi,
for sure. Tumi, Layla Cardan, Sonia, Lutic, like, yo, I can name
Alexandra,
them.
all
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
these. Shout out to all of them. Like the way they're leading in a lot of ways the industry.
Yeah.
I think that's going to provide a lot more other females who are now or have been passionate about it, but are maybe not that confident to go into it.
I hope so, man. Godspeed and more power to them all because like it's inspirational, honestly.
Yeah. And especially when we see events like when Shabani and these guys did that thing about
Girl Talk.
Girl Talk.
Amazing.
Female only.
Marwa, like another one who was amazing. Yeah.
So I think there's definitely going to be a change. I think what we need to try to accomplish is to make change as fast as possible than slower, because it's inevitable that's going to be change. But the ideal scenario would be if it becomes faster more than anything else.
We as men are in that position. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We as men are in the position of power, you know? In most cases in the world, we are in the position of power because of our gender a lot of the time. And that's how society has been. And I think it's got to the point where we're now, as a society, so aware of how unfair it is for women in so many ways that it is our responsibility, you know, to make sure that in whatever ways we can, we stop that from happening. And it's definitely something that is super important in this region, especially with Arab women, you know, with the more conservative cultures. It's so important.
That's a huge factor here, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I grew up here. Like, I've seen that all my life where, like, women are expected to not do anything because they're women. And it's just like...
Yeah. For me, like a random example that happened to me a couple of days ago, somebody asked me for a photography gig. I was a nikah, and they were like, they need a female photographer. I started scratching my head, like, how many female photographers do I know?
I mean,
not that many.
Tumi, right? Yeah.
Tumi, I was like, Tumi is in Oman, so I was like,
Yeah.
I can't contact her. So like, who do I contact right now to send to this somebody who's like a good friend who asked, like, I need a photographer, but I can't hire you. They need a female who can attend and things like that. So it was, how many female photographers do I know? So I think it's not only just like one industry or something. It's across the board everywhere else as well. And I started talking to somebody else about this, and it was like, man, I think this is way more important. So when I met this other person through Rhea, if you know Rhea, so I told her, and I was like, okay, let's try to create this community within ourselves, at least, to like try to push each other more and more, because nobody else is going to. Or even if they are going to, you cannot wait around for them to make this happen. For me, one of my first gigs here in Dubai, in the beginning, I got the huge support from all of these people. Was one of the first ones was Tumi as well. Same thing. And I like to have this community around us here where everybody is pushing each other. And I think that's so important in every way. I probably mentioned this so many times to everybody, but I think it's so important to always appreciate the people who you have around you and things like this. And for you, I've one of the things I wanted to talk about definitely is like Travis, who's sort of your partner in crime.
That's my broski. That's the broski, Travis. Yeah.
So how did you two meet? What happened and how did everything go on?
So we got two different stories about this, right?
Yeah.
he has this one story about how we met. I have this whole other story.
Okay.
But basically, the most true version is that I can sometimes be a bit of a hater, you know? And I think this happens with all creatives. It's like it's that competitive spirit. When you see
especially
someone
with your sports background in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'm super competitive.
Yeah.
So when you see another creative doing something, you're like, a little bit of you can sometimes be like, man, I could do that shit better. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so when I'm in clubs a lot of the time, like I'll be watching DJs, and I mean, it's not even necessarily true. They're usually pretty fucking good, right? But I'll be like, nah, I could do it better. But I remember I went to Cartel for the first time. Like, I think it was its second week of opening, and Travi had just been flown down here by the owners to be their resident DJ. And I went to Cartel and I experienced the whole night there, right? And through the night, like, I was really enjoying the music. I was really enjoying how he was DJing and stuff. And I was trying to be a hater. I was like, nah, like, I could do that better. I didn't like that mix. This. But by the end of the night, man, I was like, fuck, I gotta go talk to this guy because he's dope. So I went to him and I was like, yo, like, my name's Behruz. Like, I'm a DJ in Dubai. Like, I play at this, and this place. Like, are you new here? And he was like, yeah, I'm from Toronto. Like, I'm Guyanese originally and stuff. And so we just started talking. I think he gave me his number. I texted him one time. Then I found out, he started coming to some of my gigs. We started talking. I figured his whole Drake and Maja Jordan OVO background, which I was super like crazy about because Drake's like my favorite artist. He has been since back in the day. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And yeah, man, I just got so much respect for that guy. He taught me so much so quick. Like, he had so much experience in the industry that I didn't. And I had so much experience in Dubai that he didn't, you know? It was a very symbiotic relationship. It still is. That's my brother for life, man. Like, that is like...
Sometimes people come in your life that just is like the perfect scenario that happens and you never expect that, but...
Absolutely. And I'm so glad it did. And he actually came into my life where, you know, I was going through a lot of hardships with relationships and friendships and stuff. I wasn't in a very good place, and Travi came into it, and man, like,
because I've seen you guys
clicked.
like now so many times, and you have this amazing friendship with both of you that you're always playing around and
it's jokes. Travi's a fucking legend. I can't say it enough. Anyone who doesn't know Travi needs to get to know Travi. That dude is a legend.
He's always fun. He's
always happy. He's always kind. He's so polite. And you know what? He's so humble. If you spent as much time with Travi as I have, and you knew the accomplishments and the things this guy has done in his life, like, man, it blows my mind still. And he's so humble. He comes here, doesn't say a word to anyone about anything. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And that's I think a lot of times the perfect thing, because that relationship with another fellow creative person, but how did that lead for you from like, okay, respecting each other, coming to each other's gig, then starting to play together, and then mixed feelings and all of this? Because that's a long...
It is, but it happened really quick, man. Like, I think some things just feel right, and me and him just started spending a lot of time together and just started realizing like our music taste and our taste for how we did things was so similar. It was like we were the same person in terms of music, you know? So it was like, this fits, it's natural. Like, it's seamless when we play. You can't tell if Travi's playing or B's playing. And that happened before we started playing together. You know, we were just so similar in styles, but so uniquely different that we complemented each other. And it was like, we have to do this. And especially because one of the main things is not even the way we DJ, it's just our chemistry together. It's like, you know, like people love having both of us around because when we're both together, we're both so much better.
You're pushing each other.
Yeah, always.
Feeding off each other all the time.
Always. And, you know, humbling each other. Like, you know, there's times when like, I think I'm the shit. I'm DJing like crazy and Travis will be like, yo, that was trash. You know, and I need someone like that. And I'm someone that a lot of people find very intimidating sometimes, you know, and it's like, Travi doesn't. He does not find me intimidating.
That's important.
He'll put me in my place.
Having that level of respect, but at the same time, keeping it real with you.
Absolutely, man. It's so important.
Just telling you when shit's not good, like, okay, like I think especially when you have someone who you see as a good friend and as a brother and also someone you respect as a DJ or another person in the same industry. I think it's a lot of times you see people in their circle, they don't tell them that they all become yes men almost. That yes men.
It's a very bad thing.
Yeah, it's a disservice to the person, especially if you like them and especially if you want them to succeed. If you only have yes men around you, you're not gonna grow.
I agree completely. And the issue is it's two parts, right? The first part is the person who's criticizing someone else or constructively criticizing someone else thinks, oh, I don't want to be an asshole and hurt their feelings. And the person on the receiving end often doesn't receive it properly, right? And it's natural. When you're creative, you're sensitive about your art, you know? You're very sensitive about your art form, like I'm sure as you are, I am. And
if it comes from the right person in the right way.
Exactly, and that's where Travi's a blessing for me. And I hope I'm the same back for him, you know? Because we can check each other and it's important.
I think it's so important. And every creative endeavor, like especially, if you stop growing, in a lot of ways, you're dying off. I see it that way. Like if you're not growing, then you're definitely slowly fading away. You're like, you've seen, especially with old rock stars and things like that, music-wise, if they stop making music and then just like play their hits, over time, they just die.
Yeah, there's no such thing as static.
Yeah.
You're either going up or down, right?
Yeah. And there's no one way of static, like you mentioned. Like I think that's so important. But who else, not only in terms of like keeping you growing and things like that, but inspiring wise, like other artists locally or even internationally, has you mentioned Drake to be one of your
Yeah. Drake's insane one, but like I think Drake is now at that point where he's everyone's idol, isn't he? Like,
He's the biggest star.
He's the biggest person in the world. And like I'm talking about 2008, which is when I started really listening to him, right? And really being like, wow, I really fuck with this guy. And what's crazy to me about that as well, it's like life comes full circle, right? I didn't know it, but Travi was with him then, recording for him, right? I didn't know it.
That's amazing.
And then a decade later,
once I have him on, I want to definitely talk about that experience.
Man, that story is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of inspirations, man, anyone out here who is really putting themselves out on the line and pushing it to in a market that basically doesn't exist in terms of music, very, very small, is pushing themselves. That person is an inspiration to me, like Mo, right? Mo Flow Music. Man,
shout out to Mo.
Shout out Mo, yo. Like, shout out AY too. AY is a big one too. Like, shout out Mo and AY. Like, AY is relentless with his production. He fucking produces non-stop, right?
Sometimes I wonder how that guy keeps going.
Yo, he's relentless. And he's doing all his shit on the side for, Harmony and the agency, but
with other artists, for Mo.
Exactly, for Mo. Like, I feel like every single day he has something new dropping with someone new. And it's just like, that's inspiring to me. Because growing up here, you don't see a lot of music. Honestly, I didn't see a lot. It didn't exist.
Because
Music.
I went through a phase here as well. Like there was the traditional music that happened, and that was big.
Yeah.
But then the transition, because with the newer generations, a lot of them were not very into the traditional music, which is across the board, around the world, everywhere the same. But then there were no real like modern artists in a lot of ways here.
No, there weren't.
I think that's a big reason why there was a die-off in the music appreciation in a lot of ways in the community.
Especially in the non-Arabic realm of music, you know? I don't know that much about the progression of Arabic music in Dubai over the years, but from what I do know, I know it's a similar thing where it didn't really exist that much, but coming out of the 2010s and now even more so, more recently, thanks to guys like AY, thanks to guys like Mo, thanks to guys who, you know, even when they have no support behind them, have just put content out and put music out. Yeah. That shit's amazing to me, man. Like, that's my inspiration because that's what I want to do. Ultimately, like I said, I'm a creator. I want to put my music out there. And so that's that inspiration to me for sure.
Definitely. I think, especially creating wise, I think there's no better feeling than something coming from yourself, because there's such a personal touch to it as well. And I've seen that for me in a lot of ways as well, because over time it's become more and more prominent, and this has always been something that's been very close to me. Like you mentioned, like you love DJing at all of these places and all of these venues and everything, but at the same time, there's a very personal aspect of like wanting to create music.
Absolutely.
It's the same way with me as well. Like I love doing these gigs for brands and other people, whoever I get to work with. At the same time, I have my own ideas. I have my own like creative thoughts that I want to like bring to life. Almost, it's almost like you're bringing something out of nowhere, and maybe not all the things are super original. But at the same time, it's like your opinion, your perspective.
I mean, and this is part of that, right? Which is great.
And I think that's so important for people as well, especially in the creative communities. Because if you get super absorbed with just doing, like you could just continue doing DJ work for the rest of your life. You would be good financially. You would like start doing, you would continue doing bigger and bigger and bigger places. But at the same time, like, if you are not completely satisfied with the element of like, okay, I just want a DJ, and that's going to eat away on you slowly.
I mean, look, let me put it into a photographer's term. It's like if you opened an art gallery, right? Or if if you opened an art gallery and spent all day putting other people's pictures up, right? Which is cool. Is cool. And, you know, I love DJing. Yeah. But at some point, you're looking at all these pictures and you're like, man, I want to take some pictures. Or, you know, I do take pictures. Why don't I put them out? It's the same with me for music.
True.
You know, my club or my, you know, lounge or whatever, wherever I'm DJing, that's my art gallery. And people are coming in to see what I'm putting out there. And I think that's super important. DJs are super important because, you know, they put out the trends in music.
Yeah.
And well, at least they should be. They used to. I always try to. But at the same time, it's like, I listen to all this music all the time. I'm consuming all this music all the time, like all day. And it's like, I want to put my own music out because I have things to say that some of these people aren't saying. Or maybe they're saying it, but I want to say from my perspective.
Definitely.
You know?
From your own experiences and things as well. Because everybody has their own life experience that they've gone through. Because I think that's the ultimate form of art, or like making art, isn't it? Like you're expressing your inner, like whatever form it is, like some people's feelings, experiences, all of that things, like you're manufacturing and almost making it physical in some ways. Like you're bringing it out for
you're
other
giving
people.
it life.
And other people. And like you mentioned, like anybody who's willing to do that and put themselves out there is a huge inspiration all the time. Like just because of that element alone, like putting yourself out there is always like unbelievable, because we know how hard it is to do that for people, and that alone pushes me, you, I know a lot of other people would agree on this, saying that okay, that alone is enough for me to like keep pushing on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's like, it's, you know, obviously there's a fear to vulnerability. There always is a fear to vulnerability, but you don't show your true self until you are vulnerable. And I have so much to say and so much to do in this life that, that I want to put out there. So it's super important for me. I think it's definitely the next stepping stone in my life where it goes really to creating music.
But what direction are you planning to take that into for you?
What do you mean?
More like certain genres, or producing just the music element, or do you want to start singing as well?
Man,
rapping,
all of it.
Open to all the experiences.
All of it, absolutely.
And that's exciting also, isn't it?
Yeah, because, you never know where you fall into, or what you really enjoy the most. I know that I love singing, I've been singing my whole life. I love singing. No one's ever heard me sing, except maybe Travi. But
what does he say about it?
Yeah, he's super supportive, man. He's always telling me to record my vocals. He's always like,
be excited to listen.
Yeah,
to
man. Like, I'll always, me and Travis send each other beats that we make all the time. And he's like, he gets to the point, he's like, yo, quit sending me beats unless you have your vocals on them. Like, I know you can produce. I heard all your shit. Put your vocals on it. Like, I want to hear that shit. And it's cool. It's motivational, but it's scary, obviously.
Especially starting something new.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Especially for men, like singing is not something that that you're completely comfortable with doing in public, unless like I don't have like a God-given fucking voice, I'm not Michael Bublé over here. So
I think that's an interesting thing as well. I think there's so many things that as you grow that like people put on you, like you mentioned, like there is a certain element of that, okay, like you mentioned, men, the singing aspect of this, but there's so many singers who are men who are so amazing.
It doesn't make sense, you shouldn't have that insecurity, but I do. Which
where does that stem from? I think a lot of times it's like your childhood experiences or like growing up.
Maybe. I don't know if I can pinpoint a exact time, but I just know I've always loved singing.
Because everybody also like expresses or starts expressing in one way. It can evolve into other things for sure.
Yes.
But like for me, in a lot of ways, in the beginning, it was the same. Like I felt extremely comfortable behind the camera. Super comfortable.
But never in front of it.
Never in front of it. Over the last couple of years, I've slowly but surely wanted to be in front of the camera more and more. For different reasons, for business reasons, for my own reasons, because I started realizing like, and I have barely any pictures of myself.
Yeah. Which is crazy because all you do is pictures.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I need to, because that's how I started doing as well. For me, like it was, you go through life, so many experiences and so many amazing things. But like over time, you forget.
Yeah, you want those memories forever.
Yeah. And that's in a lot of ways the philosophy of photography and filmmaking. That's, you're capturing that moment and trying to make it forever. For me, that's the biggest inspiration, and the reason I started doing photography was that, because I throughout childhood, we as a family we traveled a lot, and all of those experiences, I barely remember most of them.
Yeah.
If I remember, there's like glimpses here and there.
You're right. Yeah, the same.
Yeah. So for me, it was like I wanna like start documenting more and more stuff, and that what's inspired me to even start this and everything else as well. Like I'm very inspired towards doing more documenting style photography, videography, filmmaking, everything. I think that's where it stems from.
It's super important, especially once again in the region that we're in, right? We are literally at the pinnacle of growing in Dubai, in the UAE, in the Middle East. In terms of all creative arts, right? At the pinnacle, that needs to be documented.
Yeah.
The start needs to be documented. And so people like you who are doing what you're doing, it's amazing, man. I pray you never stop. I hope you do it forever, bro.
Definitely. I don't plan on stopping, and hopefully I continue to do it as well. Amazing. That's my goal in a lot of ways as well, because I'm like talking to Mo, AY, you, all of these guys, like everybody, we come from such a like different stories. But a lot of times these are just verbal stories. And I think, especially if once in hindsight, I know this seems like really like retrospect in a ways, but like imagine this from like 10 years from now, wherever we all are in our own lives. somebody else having that view of like you mentioned, Travi working with Drake and all of these guys, like somebody who is young, who is looking to get that inspiration or something, like just to push themselves. If, like, imagine if you like with the latest documentary with The Last Dance, I'm sure you've seen it.
Of course.
Like, how amazing is it to see Michael Jordan in his younger days?
Absolutely.
And like that. For how long? We've never had any documentary on Michael Jordan before. So having something like that pushes so many more people.
Yeah, man. And I don't know, maybe in 10 years I'll be famous as hell and, you know, some kid will watch this documentary, or maybe you'll be famous as hell and some budding photographer will be watching this documentary and be like, yo, that's where he started, in his apartment. He was, you know, podcasting with other DJs in the city.
And all of this. I think that's where, for me, this becomes a huge inspiration, is because I want creativity to be the primary element of this endeavor that I'm going with my company, with my podcast, content in every way as well. Because I get inspired with so many people on a daily basis. And that is the huge, for me, and I've had these conversations that we're having now, we have with other people and with you, we've had some similar conversations even before, off air and off recording. And that was alone like, man, we have all of these amazing conversations.
Yeah, I wish we captured that. Yeah.
And like, why don't we capture them? Like, why is it not? And I don't think everything should be captured. It's just not something that is sustainable on a daily basis. But at the same time, at least the ones which can be, would be so valuable even to yourself. If it's later to somebody else, that's a different, whole different scenario. But to yourself, how much value it brings.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we get used to the daily life. Like before Corona, like you mentioned, like we had the small talk before, like you get so used to the daily life, you never sit down, consider where you came from, or even if you do, it's such a small part of your life. But over time, I think it's so important that you keep true to like understanding where your journey came from.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hold yourself accountable, you know? It's like, now I've said on something that people are going to see that I'm going to put out music. So it's like, yo, like, B, if you see this in a year and you haven't put out music, like, you're a bitch, you know? Put the music out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People are going to start holding you accountable.
Exactly.
And that's another thing as well, isn't it? Like, putting yourself out there, it also, like, not forces you, but just keeps you accountable to be like, oh, I said it.
Now I got to do it. I should do it. Yeah. And, you know, that was a year ago or 2 years ago. Like, or it's also like, okay, look, I said that a year ago and now I've done it, which is also cool.
Yeah, that's cool as well. So what other things for you are you more excited about that's going to come in music terms, or even otherwise? It doesn't have to be music.
So much. Me and, man, I don't want to give out too much or give out too many details because, you know, I don't believe in, I believe in the black tongue, and I don't want to put nazar or ayn on anything.
In particular, if I was to ask something like, we started the Mixed Feelings really strong this year, but then obviously Corona happened and we sort of brought that down. What sort of a vision do you have for that one, at least? And then it doesn't have to come out, like, you don't have to give everything out, but just,
Mixed Feelings is...
how did that start, the Mixed Feelings, first of all?
Mixed Feelings is... it's something that just me and Travi realized that we needed to do together, right? So we were sitting in a car, we were like, yo, like, are we really gonna, like, so we should start DJing together? Like, are we really gonna do it? Should we put a name on it? We got the brand together and stuff. And then we were like, all right, like, why are we just playing in clubs? We should, you know, start doing our own events. So we started doing our own events. The first one, which was Valentine's Day, which you were kind enough to do photography for, was
I'm always game for
successful as hell, you know? It was a great night, and we were just, you know, getting started, and then we got pushed down a little bit because of Corona, but
come back stronger than ever.
Come back strong, man. Comeback is going to be strong. And over the next couple of years, I think we really just want to be in every nook and corner of the city that we can be in. Anywhere you look, I want you to see Mixed Feelings. Anything music related, I want you to see Mixed Feelings, you know? I want to be a part of all of it. Even if it's just uplifting other people. Even if it's me and Travi, you know, putting other people on, putting new, younger DJs on. Like, when I came to the city and started DJing, I was 22. Right, I'm 25 now, but when I was 22 years old, I was the youngest DJ by far. There was no one else that was in any sort of big club that was younger than me. The only person even remotely my age was Namdi. who I think Namdi's like a couple years or a couple months older than me or something like that. But I want to put those young kids on, man. Like, people don't give young kids opportunities.
That's the thing. I've heard you talk about this a few times. Like you're pretty passionate about putting younger.
Yeah, for sure, man. I feel like I went through such an experience where I came here and I was like, no one wants to take me seriously.
Yeah, everybody wants that experience or
Yeah.
that fame element of
Yeah.
like, how successful are you to now let's put you on.
Yeah, you know, and when I started playing, I've had some pretty shitty experiences where I've played alongside DJs who have been playing for a very long time and are great DJs. But instead of using their platforms as great DJs to teach and to educate and to inspire, they'll use it to put you down like, you don't know shit. Like, and I'm not about that at all. You know, if a kid comes up to me and he doesn't know how to DJ, he doesn't know how to produce music, he doesn't know what he's doing or what the first avenue is to get in contact with a club in Dubai, I want to be able to help them, you know? And I think the next few years for me, for Travi, for Mixed Feelings will be all about giving people the platform, as well as using those platforms for ourselves. Because we have a lot to say too. We have a lot of creativity we want to put out too.
I think there's definitely very few people who try to do that, who want to do that, because they are obviously, like you mentioned, like you have your own thing to do as well. But at the same time, like not many people take that opportunity to try to get newer talent and everything else. One of the things I absolutely loved seeing was the Defiant ones, the documentary, like how Jay-Z made that university and everything for people who want to make. That's so amazing to see, because especially he did it for place he came from and things like that, and you're doing similar in terms of like you want to do it for Dubai.
Man, so I was just about to get onto that, which is the biggest factor of all of this for me is this city, right? Yeah. This is my home by all means. No one can ever tell me otherwise. This is my blood, is Dubai, right? I will do anything I can to put it on the platform that it deserves to be put on. You know, and in order to do that, you need to put the young kids on. You need to put, you know, the people that are too scared to put themselves on out. You need to help people to do that. And in established markets like the US and the UK, like that had to happen before, you know?
Yeah. I think like definitely that there's that element of like they went through their own history, they went through their own progression of like growing, and because there's so much that happened in US and UK and all of these places with, like, for example, hip hop in US, like there was so much public and cultural thing. That's why it became so huge.
Yeah.
And that's where that element comes, where like it has to be more than just the performance element of it as well.
Absolutely. Look at the city of Toronto, for example, right? Look at where Toronto was 15 years ago when, you know, there was hip-hop didn't exist. 15 years ago, there was Cardinal Official and, you know, some dudes that weren't very big, but, you know, were pioneering to the game. And those guys might not have got as big as they did themselves, but they paved the road for people, you know? And, like, it's just one of those things. Like, there's this guy here, like, one of my very good friends, Raj Katecha, right? He's just a guy who's so full of knowledge, who's so like, he's just always trying to help people out in everything that he can. Free of charge, there's, you know, whatever you want. You go to him and you ask him a question about anything, he will give you his absolute knowledge. He's not selfish with it. And I feel like if more people were like that, like, people would just progress so much.
I want to get a little more into that. Why is that? Because I feel the same way. I don't know why people try to hold on to knowledge. Like, it's not like, number one, you're going to grow from it. But number two, like, what are you trying to save it from? Like, everybody has that mentality of like, not everybody. Fortunately, from people I experience a lot here, that's not the normal scenario. Most people are very happy to help you. Most people are very, like, they always motivate you. They always push you to do better. And that's what I love about like my like experience here. But there is people who feel that way. And I never understand why, because like there's enough for everybody. Listen,
at the end of the day, in my head, it's insecurity, right?
Their own insecurity.
It's the only reason that someone would try to stop someone else from gaining when there's an infinite amount to gain for everyone. You know what I mean? It's just people are threatened.
Like I was talking to somebody else in terms of photography, for example. Dubai, give or take, has about 2 million people. The way I see it, like, there's no way everybody is going to be my client. So if somebody is looking for a photographer and I'm not busy on that day, I want to recommend someone who I know or who is in my circle and things like that to just like, dude, I'm busy that day. Like this person has asked me for photography, just do this one,
Of course.
Like why is, I never understood it, and I've always struggled sort of putting together that's a very good point. Like you mentioned, the saying that the insecurity element of like, if that person is going to get it, I'm not going to get it in a way.
Yeah. And like, listen, it doesn't always work out, Sometimes you try to put someone on and they bite the hands that feeds them, but that shouldn't change how you do what you do. You should do it because you believe in it. There's been times, and listen, I'm not fucking politically correct. I don't give a shit what anyone says. Like, there's been times where I have put other DJs in this city on only for them to talk shit about me behind my back, right? And that kind of shit happens. Is that going to stop me from putting another DJ on that I believe in? Absolutely not. Because sure, fucking one bad seed, I don't give a shit about him.
Yeah. I think that's huge. And I think that's what in the long run is going to change also, not only the community and the growth, but also like your own brand in a way, like we discussed before.
Yeah, man. Like, and like it can only help you. Like, even if you want to look at it in an absolutely selfish way, 9 out of 10 times that person you helped out is not going to help you out. He's going to help you out in the future at some point, or he's going to say to someone, "Yo, this guy is so cool. Like, he did this for me," and that's just a selfish reason for it, right? But the point is that if you start it, it starts a chain reaction. Hopefully, that kid then helps someone else, because they found that they got their in from that. Like, that's how it happened to me. There's certain people along my journey who have really had faith in me and trusted me to do the job and given me the platform to do it. And that's why, for the same reason, I now want to have my faith in other people to do things.
I think like another element also of that is like, because you experienced that, like you mentioned, like the chain reaction element of it, that's so huge, because now you feel like I was fortunate enough to somebody else do that for me. And a lot of ways that responsibility of also like, okay, I should do that for somebody else.
Absolutely. It's absolute responsibility. Like I said, this is my city. I grew up here. I was raised here. Every single bit of my life is this city. And so it's definitely my responsibility. For anyone who's trying to better the city, I help that person too.
I think that's huge. But there's one more thing I want to ask you before we head off today. And thank you for doing this again.
Of course, thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, it was a very nice conversation. But there's one more thing that I've always wanted to like ask you is like, there's a huge difference, especially now that you are like sort of polarizing in a little way of like, there's the live performance element of DJing and things like that. But then creating music is almost very personal, right? So what sort of starts becoming, what elements do you enjoy more of the live performance? Obviously the crowd and having to put on a performance for them and seeing the reaction is definitely one of the big things. But what other aspect of that, and how is it very different from making something personal? Because you make music in a studio, then you release it as a final version. But DJ is not like that. DJ is more like you do it a lot of times live. You see people's reaction, then you're like, this is not working. Like, let me change the tempo and things like that of this, and like get a different reaction from people. And I've seen this conversation, especially in the last Mixed Feelings event that we did. Sometimes you're trying to gauge people's interest and energy in a lot of ways as well, because not every crowd is the same and everything like that. So how is that sort of like, how do you balance that for you?
Well, like
what aspect you love the most as well for the live performance part?
What I love the most about live performance, right, is that if you fuck up, you're fucking up on the spot. People are hearing you fuck up, and you're going to get looks, and you're going to be like, everyone's going to be like, what the fuck? Like, I love that kind of pressure. I love that pressure, With production, you can kind of coast because you have time to finish things and perfect them, edit them, this. With DJing, it's very like, all right, let me see what you got. And what I love about DJing too is when you experiment with DJing, when you experiment live with DJing, the satisfaction that you get when you pull something off and everyone's like, woo, unmatched, man. You get to see a live room of people just showing their appreciation towards what you've just done, and an unmatched feeling.
And they get on the dance floor, and
it's an unmatched feeling, man. There's just the energy when it's a good club night and people are feeling what you're doing, like there's an energy that puts me on top of the world.
Extending that the live performance part a little bit, especially like if it goes to like festivals and things like that. I'm sure you've been to many festivals in your life. Like, is there a thing of like playing for that festivals and things like that, something that excites you more in that way?
So this also ties into what you said was what's next for Mixed Feelings. Is what was going to be next for Mixed Feelings was we were trying to set up a tour for ourselves, and we're progressing along that. And now that we are pretty much back to normal, that's definitely on the bucket list. And yeah, absolutely, traveling to the world and showing other crowds and other places what we're about.
Because like a lot of my music experience has come from much as I've grown in the older ages, not as a very young kid. And last one of the best documentaries, another one which I watched was the Steve Aoki's documentary.
Yeah, amazing. He's insane, huh? He's insane.
He's unbelievable. Yeah, the way he puts out the energy and the work level.
Man, and this is the thing. People think that being a creative is easy and it's just you don't really have to do that much work, but that guy slept like 3 hours a night to the point where he almost died or something, And
he sleeps like when he's transporting from the airport to the gig in the car. And we know this a lot because we are on a daily basis happening this regularly. And me and you, I'm sure, have had many experiences like this, not to the level, obviously, of Steve Aoki at that pace of like throughout the year. But there's that element of like recognizable thing that we've had. But at the same time, people like you mentioned, like say that, he's DJ, he's enjoying his life, he's partying every weekend and like he's balling and things like that. But that's the face value.
Absolutely, it's once you dig deeper, you see that there are a lot of challenges and there is a lot more to it than just what you see. There's a lot more to it than when you get on that stage, that 1 hour set that you do and then go on after that.
There's so much preparation that happens before.
You got to do your homework. You got to have, imagine this, right? One of the hardest parts about being a DJ for me, and this is one of the things about production that I like more, is during production, I can express how I feel, right? How I feel exactly. If I feel sad, I'm producing sad. I'm singing sad. If I feel angry, that's what I'm doing. If I'm happy, I'm doing that. When I'm a DJ, nah.
You gotta do it for the people.
All that shit needs to go out the door. Your head needs to be clear the second you step in that booth. Because you cannot be in a bad mental state and perform well. People will recognize that energy. And I've learned that because there's been times, like I said, where I've gone through hard times in my life and tried to DJ like nothing's going on. You can tell, man, you're just not playing the same, not with the same energy, not with the same enthusiasm, and people know that. So that's one of the big parts is you are performing to entertain other people. Customer is king.
And realizing that as well, like you're there for the people to entertain those people. And then that's so important as well, because I think some creative people lose the idea of being what you're there for. Like you're there for those people, not at the moment, like in that moment, you're like wherever you are mentally is not the primary importance.
It's not at all.
Either if you are already in that phase for a while, just don't take the job. Like that's an option always. But if you have taken the job, your responsibility is to deliver at that stage.
Customer is king, right? That's a Raj Katacha phase. The customer is king. And that's not to say that, you do everything that the crowd wants you to do. No, you keep your own style, but you better make sure that they are happy at the end of the day. Find a way to be unique and also satisfy at the same time. And you've got it, but don't bring your own problems to the booth.
Yeah, that's not their responsibility. That's not their problem.
That's not what they're there for.
Yeah.
They're in the club because they want a good time. They don't want to empathize with your...
Especially in a scenario where in the clubs and things like that, those people from their jobs, like over the weekend, they come to have a good time. They come to and be entertained.
Yeah, and everyone has their own problems, know? Yeah. They aren't putting it on you when you're in that club. Exactly. So don't put it on them.
True. I think that's so important, like for people to realize, and hopefully most creative people realize that. But I've had certain experience with certain people that they try to make their personal things be more important than the actual job is, which is very disappointing in a lot of ways, just because that's not helping you.
It's not.
It's not helping you. It's like creating an issue for you, because then the client is not going to hire you again. Then like people are going to have a bad view about you, and it goes across the board for everybody, not just being a DJ or photographer. Like it's the same for everybody, I think.
Yeah, man. And like also, if you're a creative, hopefully you're doing something you love, right? I'm DJing because I love it. Why am I going to bring negative energy to something I love?
True.
No, I want that all to be positive. I want it to be a place where I can, if I have problems in my life, which everyone does, I can just forget them and just enjoy myself, man. And like, I think my life has pretty much come down to that in the last 6 months, especially with this pandemic and all the self-reflection I've done is, man, positivity is important in every aspect. If you can turn something from a negative to a positive, do it. Your life will be better.
I hope on that note, if everybody, whoever listens to this and can get at least that one message out of this,
absolutely,
the best thing is just saying that try to create as many positive moments and experiences for yourself to bring out the best out of you, no matter where you are.
And uplift, man, uplift everyone around you that you can. You know,
uplift everyone. I think
the women, shout out the women again, like so important. Shout out all the women in this city, all the women all around the world that are doing amazing stuff. Shout out everyone that's trying to...
all the creative people in this region, around the world. I think shout out to everybody. Keep doing you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, you know, just
enjoy
whenever you
the process. Enjoy the process as well along the way. Just be happy that you're able to pursue this at whatever level you're able to pursue.
Yeah.
And consider this as just that perfect dream in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. It's a blessing to be able to do what you love, man. It is a blessing. There's a lot of people that have it much harder than we've had it, you know?
Yeah, just to close it off, like one of my best single line conversations with one of my favorite people here, Abri, was that if you are doing what you love to do, what you're passionate about, and make a living out of that, you're already living the dream.
It's true. I agree 100%.
Yeah. All right, let's close it on that. Tell everybody where to find you.
Oh, right. Instagram, Behruz Mistry, first name, last name. And Instagram,
no dot in between?
No dot.
Okay. One word.
Yeah, one word, Behruz Mistry. And in my mixed feelings for our mixed feelings Instagram. And I will see y'all all soon somewhere, I'm sure.
All right.
Pleasure, my guy. Thank you for having me. You're a legend. You're a legend.